Testing 1, 2. There we go. I think I got a microphone now. Let me know if the microphone is on. Okay. I think it's 2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock. So it's time for RockSim Live. And we're here. We're live. It's Friday, January 24th, 2025. And I am back in the saddle. Last week we were off because I was visiting my daughter in Texas. But we're here today to answer your RockSim questions. I'm trying to move my desk around. Where am I? So we're here to talk about RockSim, RockSim Pro, and the Launch Visualizer. I have the chat running in this YouTube video. So if you are watching live, go ahead and type in those questions, and I'll try to answer them. That's what we're here for, to answer your questions, to train you about how to use RockSim, to make you better Rocketeers. So you lose less rockets, your rockets fly better than everybody else on the range, and then they're all envious. So we just started. I got David from Michigan, but currently is in Nashville. He's here today. If you're here and you want to be recognized, go ahead and type in your name and where you're from, and I'll recognize you as being a participant today. Stuart LaFond is here from Vermont, and he said, club launch this weekend, canceled from last week, only in the 20s, but looking forward to it. Yeah, while I was out last week, there was supposed to be a launch on Saturday, but it was a blizzard. So that one got canceled, but I haven't heard if they're going to try to make it up. And there's 5 Saturdays this January, so it's going to be another 2 weeks before I'll be able to go launch rockets with the club. Jazzy Engineer MC, he says, howdy from South Carolina, USA. And he is interested in simming dual deployment. Okay, we can talk about that. And Purple Haze also is here, and he says, will RockSim ever export complex fin designs, or is there a workaround to do it now? So Purple Haze, I got a question for you, is what do you consider a complex fin design? Because it might do what you want, but I'm not sure how you define complex. We have Frank Noble from Tripoli, Wisconsin is here. So, hey, Frank, I don't recognize your name, but welcome. And if you're in Wisconsin, what's the weather like there? I assume it's cold, but I don't know. It's nice and warm here today, but then tomorrow again, it's supposed to get another cold front come in. It's January, so what do you expect? Let's see. Okay, so if you've never used RockSim before, I got to tell you where to find it. You find it at ApogeeRockets.com. And when you come here, this is our website, and I got a camera that needs to be moved. There we go. All right. If you come to ApogeeRockets.com, you'll see the scrolling carousel, and it has banners, so you can click on RockSim. You can also click on other things. There's the Nike Hercules, and we have a link to RockSim.com, which is what we call the Launch Visualizer. In the Launch Visualizer, you can't design rockets, but you can run the simulations, and you can do that in the cloud, on the web, without installing any software. So you just go to that website right now, and you can start using it right away. Okay, so let's see, where am I? So when you get here to the home page, and if you just scroll down a little bit, there's this free RockSim training. That's what we're doing right now. And this is called RockSim Training Live. And if you click on the little image, it takes you to our history page of all our past episodes. Although it looks like we're behind a little bit. I think we're on episode 191 today, or 192. My daughter used to make these, update this page for me, and she's back in school, so she can't do it, so I got to do it myself, and I'm a little bit behind. Anyway, if I come here to the How-To and Guides menu, click on that, and then drop down here to Software. And here's where you can, download a free trial. You can purchase it, find out what it is, see some of our basic tutorials. And then there's other things here, the RockSim live training, which is what is, this page. Lots of information here, version history, system requirements, all that is here. Okay, so let's get to the questions, because I always spend too much time talking about where to get RockSim and not enough about your questions. So, okay, so Purple Haze, I'm reading your question. He says he tried to export a fin design that used the grid in RockSim, and it told me only simple designs may be exported. What the heck is this going on here? I have never seen that. Where it says only simple designs can be exported. Kind of like, can you describe the shape? Was it a flat fin with, like a polygon shape to it with curved or anything like that? Or I am not sure. I have never seen something that an error message like that. Man, my face is being covered up by the Apogee logo in the bottom corner. Maybe I'll have to move it over to the other side of the screen. Here I go. Look, I'm running across the screen. Okay. Anyway, let's go to RockSim. Let's see. Let's minimize that. So the first question was Jazzy Engineering MC says, how do you do dual deployment? Okay, so I am in RockSim Pro right now. So let me open up RockSim. So on my desktop, there's an icon. And let me open that up. I may show you some of the new features that we're working on in RockSim Pro. You'll see there's a new button up here, and it's kind of a fun one. Okay, so it says there's a new update, but I'm going to just cancel that. So let me see what version I'm running. I'm running 10.5 F9. That is not the latest one, apparently. But it should do what we need to do. Okay, so we want to do a dual deployment rocket. So first we need a design to work on. So we're going to open up an existing file, and it's not looking in the right spot. So I need to find the right spot. So I need to go to Windows, C drive, Program Files, x86, RockSim 11, and then in here there's a folder called Designs, and I'll open that. And then I need to pick a dual deployment rocket. So I'm going to go into the Apogee folder. Here's all some rockets. Let's see what we got for a dual deployment rocket. Any design will work. Peregrine. That's a big 4-inch diameter dual deployment rocket. And this is what it looks like in 2 dimensions and in 3 dimensions. If you come over here, down here, select 3D, and we'll show you what the rocket looks like. And I'm using the scroll wheel on my mouse to zoom in and out. And if I hold down the key on the mouse and drag, you can rotate the rocket around and see it from any angle and prove that it is 3D. While it's moving around, sometimes you might get these wireframe boxes. That's just your graphics card trying to keep up. Anyway, so this is a dual deployment rocket. I'll go back to 2D. We got 2 parachutes for dual deployment. So the P right here is a parachute, and there's another parachute right here. If you click on them, you can see that it is, that's a mass object, but this one right here is the parachute. So there's a mass object and a parachute, and probably the mass object is probably going to be like the shock cord. And you can tell that If you click on it and then come up here to Rocket Design Components at the top, click on that, and it will highlight what you're clicking on down here. So this tells me that this mass object is a shock cord. If I go to this one, that's also a shock cord. And if I click over here, this is a 48-inch parachute. And then this one over here is another parachute, but I don't know the diameter. So let me take a look at it by double-clicking it, and that will open up the editor screen. And this editor screen will tell me, give me basic information about this parachute. And I can tell it's an 18-inch diameter parachute. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change the name to 18-inch parachute so that I know what it is. So when I go back to the parts tree right here, you can see, yep, this is an 18-inch parachute. That's going to help you a lot. So now we need to load an engine, because now we're going to set it up for dual deployment. So we're going to load an engine. So to do the loading engines, come up here for Prepare for Launch button. That's this button here at the top. And what it is like the bottom of the rocket with two arrows pointing down to the launch pad. And so that means we're going to load it onto the pad. So Prepare for Launch, and it brings up this screen. Now we're looking at the back end of the rocket, and it's looking for a rocket motor. So, if you look at the back end of the rocket, you say, how do you load a motor? Well, you come down here to this button that says Choose an Engine. You click on that, and it will bring up a list of engines that will fit this rocket. See, if I look over here where this engine is going to go, it tells me it's a 38 millimeter diameter engine. And so what it's looking at is all the motors in the database that are 38 millimeters. And I can scroll through them and just pick one. Doesn't really matter for me for this, so I'm going to just choose this engine right here, a J570W. W stands for white, so it's a white lightning motor. It's going to give me a white flame. And then I'm going to choose an ejection delay. And for dual deployment, the altimeter controls everything. So I don't even need to have an ejection delay. So I could say plugged, or if I want to use the ejection charge as a backup, I can choose an ejection delay. But RockSim is going to ignore this once we set it up for dual deployment, so don't worry about it. So I'm just going to choose plugged for right now. Plugged means there's no ejection delay. And then I'm going to click OK. And it loaded that motor, and you'll see that the back end of the rocket is now filled. And that brown spot right there, that's our rocket motor. We have the J570, and it says a 0-second delay, but I want it plugged. So there it is, plugged. And if you look over here on the side, it now shows that the engine loaded is a J570W-plugged, which is okay. So now we're ready to set up the dual deployment, and you do that in the flight events. So here in the flight events, I have two devices. I have a 48-inch parachute, that's our big one, and then we have our 18-inch parachute. And this is why I renamed it, because when I'm looking at these devices, I want to be able to tell them apart, because if they're both parachute, I don't know the sizes. So our smaller parachute is our drogue chute. So that one, we want it to come out at the top of the flight trajectory. And that is called the Apogee point. So I'm going to go here to the description for that event. This is like the triggering event. So what causes the parachute to come out? And so I'm going to click on the drop down, and I want to choose Deploy at Apogee. So this parachute is going to come out at Apogee. And then this bigger parachute, we want to deploy that one at a lower altitude. So the purpose of the dual deployment, as you know, is to save us from walking a long way. We want the small parachute to come out at Apogee so that the rocket will fall fast until it gets to a lower altitude, and at that point we want it to fall slow. Once it's falling slow, the wind is going to start carrying it. So the lower it deploys, the shorter distance is going to drift. And we can tell that by this right here. So we're going to go to the event description again. And we're going to set it at an altitude. So we're going to deploy at an altitude. And then if you come over here, you'll see that this box is now activated, and I can type in my altitude. And right now I'm in meters. So I'm going to say 100 meters, which is, a little over 300 feet. You can change the units, and I can show you that if you're interested in that. So this parachute is going to deploy at 100 meters. And now we're ready to launch. We've set up dual deployment. Dual deployment is now set up. Now we need to go launch. So I'm going to look at my starting state. My launch guide length, this is a 8-foot launch rail. So I'm going to type in 98 inches for the length. And if I change that to feet, you can see that's 8 feet, 0.166. I think it should have been 96 feet, 96 inches. And we're going to go straight up. So our launch angle is straight up. That's 0 degrees. 0 degrees is pointing straight up. Under launch conditions, we're at an altitude of 700 feet. Standard atmosphere day. We do have wind, 8 miles an hour. And this one is also, should be 12 miles an hour. Let's make it 8 miles an hour. So if both the low wind speed and the high wind speed are the same, that means it's a constant wind speed. It's not varying from, a fast and then slow. So we're going to say constant speed, 8 miles an hour. All right, so now we're ready to launch. So we'll hit the flight profile, and it ran the simulation. And now we're going to look at the trajectory of the rocket. And we're kind of looking at a side view. So here we are on the launch range. Our rocket is down here, and it's going to launch up, and then the wind of 8 miles an hour is going to make it drift this way. You can kind of get a hint on how far it's going to drift by looking at the units down here. 300 meters, I assume that's meters. And we hit launch, and the rocket's taking off. So this is smoke, so it's burned out now, and it's coasting. And when we hit Apogee, we should see a parachute pop out. It's getting close to the top, and right there's Apogee. So now it's a small parachute, and it's going to drop fast until it gets to 100 meters. So if you look down here at the altitude, when we get down to 100 meters, that big parachute should be coming out. So that's 48 inches. So I'm going to speed things up by grabbing the slider bar. 600, 500, 400, 300, 200, and then 100 meters. So at this point, the parachute should have kicked to the larger one. And if you look at that trajectory, you can see that now it's changed. It was coming down at this angle, and then it switched to a shallower angle. That's an indication that something changed. Each of these dots is 1 second apart. So if you look down here, all those dots are just compressed together, which means it's falling really slow. So that kind of tells us that that big parachute is also out at this point. So this is the traditional, typical dual deployment trajectory. That's what it looks like. It goes up, it comes down fast, and then when it gets down closer to the ground, then it comes and starts going more sideways because the wind is pushing it. So that's setting up dual deployment. It's not hard. It's pretty easy to do. All right. Okay, so hopefully Jazzy Engineer MC, that answers the question about dual deployment. If you have any additional questions, you go ahead and type them in and we'll try to answer them. Okay, Purple Haze, let's see, did he type in anything else on his complex fin shapes? I don't see anything. So this design that I have here, this is what I would consider a complex fin shape. Was he trying to export it or print it? Okay, so if you want to, there's a difference between exporting and printing. Printing is you want to send it to a piece of paper. Exporting means you want to use this in another program. Like we use it all the time here at Apogee to export out a fin shape so that we can cut it on a laser machine. So the laser needs a vector image or a vector drawing, which is a mathematical representation of the fins. Each corner has an XY coordinate. Where on a piece of paper, you don't really care. So to export, what you do, first you need to find the fin. So I'm going to click on the fin, highlight it here, then come back here to Rocket Design Components. And you'll see that the fin is highlighted. Then I can double click on it. And it opens up this screen. And I want to make it a little bit smaller because down here at the bottom is a button called Export Template. And if you're not seeing that, this is the button you want to click. And if you're not seeing it, I'll show you how to turn it on. But if you click on it, it will bring up, where do you want to save this fin shape? So I'm going to call it the Peregrine Fin Set, and the format is .svg. SVG is Scalable Vector Graphics. So this is a vector drawing. Our other options are STL. So an STL is actual 3 dimensions. So if you wanted to send it to a 3D printer, this is what you would choose, that STL file. And in some cases, this is pretty cool to send it to an STL because there's a reason you might want to print it. But for now, if you just choose SVG and then hit save, I'm going to throw it on my desktop so I know where it is. And hit save. Okay, and then you get a message saying, yep, it exported the template. So now it's exported. Unfortunately, okay, let me close this. Save my changes? No. That's RockSim Pro. Okay, so here on my desktop, date modified, Peregrine Fin Set. It looks like it's like an Azure file or Microsoft Edge. But it's not. This is a scalable vector graphics, and you're going to need to use a vector graphics program. If you don't have one, there's a program on the internet called Inkscape, and it's free. And you can open these files in the Inkscape. And I think it's starting Inkscape. Okay. Come on, did it open? Open. I guess it was opening. Now I'm going to open it twice. Okay, so this is Inkscape, and I'm not an expert in Inkscapes, but I can open a file. So go here to File, Open, and I'll look on my desktop. Here's the Peregrine Fin Set, and you'll see there's the shape. Click Open, and that is our fin, and this is a vector drawing. So you can edit this. And like I said, I'm not an expert in using the program. I can open the files. You can also use Adobe Illustrator. That's what we use here at Apogee, but this is Inkscape, and it's free, so it's available. So if you've never used it before, that's what it is. So that is exporting. Like I said, if you don't see that export button, you need to go to the Preferences menu right here and come here to 2D drawing. I think it's that. I'm looking for it. There it is, under Miscellaneous, the Miscellaneous tab. There's a little button here called Allow Template Exports. This is where you export out the templates. So that has to be checked. I don't know why you would uncheck it. I always just leave it checked. So now if you wanted to export as a STL file, 3 dimensions, and there's a reason. So if I look at this in 3D, if I look at the fin, at the airfoil of the fin, you'll see that right now the edge is square. So it's not an airfoil. This is just a flat, square airfoil. But in RockSim, you can change the cross section of the airfoil. So if I choose rounded, when I choose it, watch this edge right there. See, now it's rounded, and I can also choose airfoiled. And you see, it's different. It's got a little bug in here. I got an error, but it's more airfoiled now. The airfoil works better on trapezoid fins. When you get to a really complex fin shapes like this, rounded works okay, and the square edges work okay. But if you print these, so you can export this as an STL file, and then when you can also save it onto your desktop. Here's my desktop. FinSet STL, hit save. I don't think on this computer. Okay, so when you go to export this, you're going to get some options on low resolution or high resolution. Just click on high resolution. There's really no reason not to do high resolution. And then click OK. And it says, okay, we exported it. And it will be on your desktop. Save my changes. No. Let me go back to my desktop and see what's on the desktop. Okay, it's right here. And if I click on it, I don't think I can open this because I don't have a program here that will open an STL file. But if I had a, like a 3D printer, I could export it. You could open in that, and you can see it and do something with it. So now I'm stuck here. Just once. I don't know what's going to happen when I open it. Couldn't read it. Okay, that's what I figured. All right, so that is how to export a complex fin. If you wanted to print it, you go back to RockSim. Printing is a little easier. Just click on the print button up here. And then I want to export out templates. I'm going to uncheck this one here. This one has to be checked. Then it has to be fin set. And I'm going to uncheck that. And then under additional settings, you can send this to a PDF. So I'm going to send it to a PDF because I'm not hooked up to a printer. So when I do that, this is a PDF printer. And I'm going to say print. I don't know where it's going to go. Okay, so now it's asking me where I want to save it. So I can save it to the desktop. All right, so I assumed it saved it. Go back to my desktop. Date modified. FinSet. And if I open that PDF, and yes, you can see this is too big for one single 8.5 by 11 page. So it tiled it. And then it put in these registration marks on the corners so that when you print it out on real paper, you can line up these corners and splice back your fin back together like a puzzle. So you have a full-size fin template. So that is printing a fin, which is different from exporting it as a vector. Okay. Purple haze. He says an Estes Cherokee E. What's a Cherokee E? I think that's just a let me go to the internet and Estes Cherokee E. Yeah, that's, I'm looking here for an image. So yeah, that fin shape right there, that's, you know, the peregrine is more complex than that. But they're made the same way. So if you're not seeing it, how that export button or the print button, you just have to check that little box in the preferences. And then now he says it's working the way he wants. Good. Reggie Morrow is here, and he says, greetings, Tim. Happy New Year from Cedar Rapids, Ohio. Cool. Well, welcome, Reggie. Jason Horstman is here, and he says, hi, Tim. I was late today. Were you ever early? It's a name I don't know. So welcome, Jason. I'm glad you're here. Carlos K. from Marietta, Georgia is in the house. Fatbank says, how do plugged and zero delay motors differ in RockSim? Okay, that's a good question. Let me see. RockSim and RockSim Pro are the same. And I already have a 2-stage rocket loaded here. So this, I can show you the difference between a 0-second delay and a plugged motor. So again, we're going to load engines, and this is looking for 24 millimeter motors. So I'm going to choose an Estes D12. Okay, so one of the motors, I'll choose a 0. I better choose a long, this is the upper stage, so I'll make it a 7-second delay. So in the upper stage, it's a D12-7. This is the upper stage. This is the booster stage. So on a typical 2-stage rocket, Estes style, we want the motor from the bottom to ignite the motor in the top. So for that, you need a 0-second delay. Because what happens is when the propellant burns out, it throws hot gas in burning particles up into the nozzle of the upper stage, and that's what ignites it. And so you need 0-second delay. So I'm going to choose an Estes D12-0 for the booster stage. And so the parachute, I'm going to say maximum ejection delay, starting state. This one I'm going to make it 60-inch launch rod. And we're going to, it's ready to launch, so I'll go ahead and launch it, and we'll look at the flight profile. One new motor mount. These have been added to the simulation. Okay, what happened? Choose engine, D12-0. Okay, so the upper stage is a D12-7. Flight profile. Okay, it's working this time. It went 1,131 feet. I saw that because I was cheating, looking at the latest simulation down here. So now we're going to look at a flight profile. And this is the launch visualizer. And it's different from RockSim. So in RockSim Pro, it's 3-dimensional. And you can see here the rocket is sitting on the launch pad, and I can rotate the rocket around. Down here is called the mini view. I'm going to turn that off. And this cone right here is the weathercocking cone. I'm going to turn that off as well. So I went to the preferences button here at the top, and I'm going to come down here to display weathercocking cone, and I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to turn off interval points as well. So what we should see when the rocket takes off, and I'm going to zoom out by hitting the minus button, so you can kind of get an idea of where we're launching from. So this is our launch site in Pueblo, Colorado. You can see there's not a lot of trees here, but in the distance, you start seeing some mountains and some valleys and things like that. And this is 3 dimensions. So if you rotate it around, you can see things differently. But our rocket is right here where my cursor is. And I want to zoom in a little bit closer. A little bit closer. Okay, so here's the rocket, and now we're going to, let me see, let me check one more thing here. This is a multi-stage rocket. I want to make sure that this is turned on. And I want the trajectory to be yellow so I can tell it apart. Okay, so again, our rocket is right here. And when I launch it, the rocket's taking off. And it went up, and it happened so fast you didn't even see it. So let me zoom in to where the rocket is. And the rocket's coming over the top, and now the parachute's out. And this green line is the trajectory line of the rocket in the sky. And these vertical red lines is kind of like drawing a line from the trajectory back down to the ground. Because as I said, this is 3 dimensions. So if we want to know where the rocket is in relative to the ground, this kind of gives like a curtain. So this red line on the bottom down here is the trajectory along the ground. The green line is the trajectory in the air, and these other pink lines is kind of like a sheet or a curtain of drawing lines from the trajectory line back down to the ground. So that's all that it is. The yellow over here, let me pause it, is the booster stage. So the booster stage fell off the rocket probably somewhere right there. So if I zoom in right there, you can see where the yellow line and the green line intersect. Those are the stages when they're together. When they're separate, and the booster is separate. So let me go back to the beginning, and we'll maybe kind of slow this down and look at it a little bit closer. So the rocket's taking off. Okay, so right there, the booster stage fell off, and that's because it has a 0-second delay. So as soon as it burns out, as soon as that bottom stage burns out, so right now, if I look at it closely, you can see there's flame coming out of the booster stage. And so the booster stage is still burning, but as soon as it stops burning, the upper stage lights, and that's what a 0-second delay is. So if I change that, so if I make it like a 2-second delay, and we can do that here. So I'm going to go back here to prepare for launch, and that booster stage right here, if I drop this down, I can make it a custom number. So I'm going to say 2 seconds. So it's going to be a 2-second delay. So now the only thing that's changed, I went from a D12-0 to a D12-2 in the bottom stage. And if we launch it again, I got to turn off the weathercocking cone. Gets in the way. The rocket's going to take off. Okay, so right at this point, at one point between 1.61 seconds and 1.81 seconds, a 0.2 second difference, the motor had burned out. And now the rocket is coasting. And it's together, and it will, it was like 1.81. So if I add 2 seconds to that, it should be 3.81 seconds. So if I move the slider bar to 3.81 seconds, that's when the booster stage should be igniting the upper stage, right there. So now you can see that the rocket has coasted, and now the upper stage will coast further. And if I zoom out, if I look at it from a side view, okay, so let me zoom in. Okay, so our launch pad was right here. Yeah, it had to have been right there. Let me start over. Oh, it's right there. So there's the rocket. When it takes off, you can see it's going up, and it's putting down a dot every 1 second in the flight, and you can see what the trajectory looks like. So what this allows you to do is compare one flight to another. In fact, I'm going to show you something. This is what we're working on right now. This is a new feature that I just got this morning. And this is a very cool feature where we're going to compare the trajectory of one simulation to another. And to do that, I'm going to highlight both simulations. So here's the D12.0, here's the D12.2, and now I'm going to just hit the flight profile button again, and it says unable to process. What? Why not? Oh man, it's not working the way I wanted. Nope. Working before. It worked this morning. It's not working now. All right. Well, anyway, so that's what we wanted. We wanted to compare two simulations and see what they look like. But I can look here from the first simulation when it was a D12.0, we went 1,131 feet in the air. When it was a D12.2 in the booster stage, we lost altitude. So now we're only hitting 939 feet. So why did it go lower? Because as the rocket was coasting, when both stages were together, it's carrying up that dead weight of the booster stage. You know, that booster stage has weight, and it's slowing the rocket down. And at the same time, the wind is hitting the rocket, and it's causing it to arc over. So it's slowing down and arcing over, so it doesn't reach the same altitude. Okay, so now let's go to a plugged motor. So I'm going to go back up here, and instead of having a 2-second delay, I'm going to make it plugged. That's all I'm going to change. And now we're going to hit the flight profile button again. And it says, you have no ejection delay specified with the mission. This will prevent staging. And that's what a plugged motor does. It's not going to stage. You know, so you don't want to have a plugged motor. A plugged motor is like pouring epoxy into the top of the rocket engine, and it just prevents the heat and the ejection charges from going up and igniting the upper stage. So that's what the plugged means. I wanted to show you what it is. Let me, I'll click OK. Let me clear out this bottom engine. So clear selected. And let me take that upper stage and make this one plugged and see what happens. And it's giving me this weird error. Let's try it again. D12 plugged, play profile. Why is it giving me that? I'm not sure. Let me go. But plug means it's not going to ignite it. Okay. Jamster's Casino Experience. More people need to like your videos. You've taught me so much. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. I'm glad you're here. And yes, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Yeah, there's that button that says, you know, like that. And there's also subscribe, and that gives you a notification when we do these things. So, yeah, give me a thumbs up. Stuart LaFon says, Tim had a question, missed a live show 2 weeks ago on the Jolly Logic shoot release. How do you simulate in RockSim? You said, watch episode 8. I did and tried, and it worked perfectly. Thanks. Yeah, so we did. Setting up a Jolly Logic is exactly no difference from setting up dual deployment. The only difference is there's extra mass inside the rocket for the device itself. So if you wanted to set it up, you would say, okay, I'm going to put my shoot release in this tube, and I'm going to call it a mass object because I don't know the shape of it. And let's see, is there a... it's not in the database. So you could say, you can call it a shoot release. Mass. That's all it is a mass. And you can specify, I don't know what they weigh. And you can look on the Apogee website. So if you go Back here to the Apogee website, Apogee components, and you say shoot release. There it is. Click on it, and it tells me the weight is 17.01 grams. So if I go back to RockSim, and I'm going to say 17.01 grams, and then you have to specify the location. So right now the location is right there, but I'm going to just slide it back to right here. Click OK, and that's it. Adding the mass, it's only 17 grams. In this rocket, which weighs over 3,000 grams, it's not going to make much difference. But setting it up, as far as the simulation, set it up just like a dual deployment, which is under flight events. You just specify when the smaller parachute opens, which is at Apogee. That's controlled by the chute release. No, that's controlled by the ejection charge of the motor. And then the chute release controls when this deploys. And again, it's an altitude. So you set it deploy at altitude, then come over here to the column of altitude and type in a number there, and then it will deploy it there. Carlos says, Tim, I spent 20 minutes describing RockSim in my hobby town to a 3D print enthusiast. Please consider making a video of that sometime. I just did. Yeah. Reggie Morrow says, is there a free demo of the visualizer that we can download for a trial basis? The answer is yes and no. If you come here to the Apogee website or you're any browser and type in rocksim.com, this will load a launch visualizer, and this is free. So there's three different types of accounts in the launch visualizer. There's the free one, which you don't have to do anything. I can choose a design, and I can choose a Skymetra kit, select it, and then I can choose a launch site, and it's blacked out because I'm on the free version. I can't control anything except for a launch angle. So I'm going to choose a launch angle, and I'm aimed to the north. And I can't set any wind except for a steady wind, and that's even locked out. So I don't think I got any wind. I can choose rocket motors, but I can only choose up to a D motor that's free. So I can choose a Quest D20. This is the upper stage, so a D20-8. And in the bottom stage, I can choose maybe like a C60. Just like a RockSim, you're choosing the ejection delay. So I chose my motors. I got a D20-8 in the upper stage and a C6-0 in the bottom stage. And I can choose launch. And it says I'm not a robot. And simulate. Okay, and it shows our website. And if you look at this website, or the launch location, this is our launch pad here in Pueblo, Colorado. You can zoom out, but you can't change the launch location. So I'm looking at, here it says Pueblo, Colorado, and I can orient the map. So north is pointing straight up. If I continue to zoom out, you can see the United States there. So you can see my launch site is right there in Pueblo. And if I hit the home button, it'll take me back to the launch pad. And then if I push play, you can see the rocket taking off. You can see the booster stage dropped away and the upper stage is coasting. But it will stop right at Apogee. So right there is Apogee where the parachute came out. But that's the free version. So the free version stops at Apogee, but at least you can play around with it. So now if I log in, you can log in and you can create an account, and you have to set up your own password. Once you created an account, now you have control over more things. Like now I can choose a different launch site, and like I'll choose Cloudbusters. I don't know where that is. That's in Colorado, I think, as well, but I think it's near Durango. So I can see some mountains in the background there. And if I zoom out, so that's my launch site. And again, you could just hit launch. I have to set up my engine info. Oh, it switched back to the Avion because it logged me out and then logged my into this account. Oh, I'm on it as a premium member. So there's the free account anybody can use, and then once you create an account, you can launch up to a G motor, and you can also, I think, pick a launch location. I think. And the reason you have to create an account is because now you can save designs into your account. So if you have a RockSim file, you can upload it into the account and then run simulations with it. So where do you get RockSim files? Well, you go back to the Apogee website. Oops, I need a new browser window. Apogee website, and I can go shopping, look for a rocket kit, and let's say maybe I wanted this Argo D4 Javelin. And if you come down here, there's a RockSim file. Click on that, it will take you down to the page, part of the page. It just moved you down to the lower part of the page, and you can download the RockSim file. And then you have to upload it into your account. And we don't put all the designs in there because that would mean everybody has to share the same designs. And then once you run your simulations with your motors on your launch area, and then you come back to it a different day and somebody else has done a different simulation at a different location, and it would just confuse you. So that's why you need your own account. And you can create a free account. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to give up a credit card or anything. All you have to do is give up your email address so that we can associate your database with your name. So and that's all that we use it for. And then when you get to be a premium member, then you can do the high power launches, and you can do a lot more. But that costs, and it's $3 a month, which is like nothing. So that's the launch visualizer. If you want to try it out, that's what I would recommend. Now, the one in RockSim Pro is not free, and we don't have a demo for that because there are actual reasons for that. It's pretty sophisticated, and there's a free demo of RockSim. So the free demo of RockSim will allow you to design rockets, and you can upload them to the visualizer and run the 3D simulations there. If you want to do high power, then it's going to be, get RockSim and then the launch visualizer, the premium, and you can do most of what RockSim Pro can do. Although RockSim Pro will have these new features that we're working on. Carlos K says, actually make a part and show the process. A good pro and con discussion of why thick, heavy plastic parts may be a bad idea. Well, yeah, thick plastic parts can be a bad idea. And that's kind of the rage right now, is everybody wants to 3D print a rocket. And yes, you can do it, but they turn out to be heavy because the density of plastic is greater than the density of paper and balsa wood. So the rockets are heavier, they don't go as high, they don't go as fast, but you can make some pretty interesting designs. So there's advantages and disadvantages. he wants a video on 3D printing a rocket. I would print parts from RockSim, like 3D print nose cones and 3D print fin shapes and maybe transitions. But 3D printing a tube, like that, you can add a lot of weight really fast with a tube. RockSim is not a CAD program, although 3D printing an airfoiled fin is something that is really difficult to do in a CAD program, because I've been trying. Reggie says, I'll just get Pro, thanks. Good. One of the things about when you get Pro, we're going to release new features, and we're going to release them as soon as we make them and as soon as they're stable. One of the things that I was trying to show you is to be able to do 2 simulations at once. I wonder why I couldn't do it. Maybe it doesn't work for 2-stage rockets. Let me open up a single-stage rocket. Maybe that's it. Do you want to save your designs now? Okay, so here, let me run 2 simulations. D12 7 and flight events. We'll deploy it at engine ejection delay. In the starting states, we'll launch it straight up. And launch conditions, I'm going to choose a launch site. I'm going to choose this one in South Carolina. Wind table, I have a 5-mile-an-hour wind coming from the west. And so we'll hit flight profile, and we'll just see what this looks like. Okay, so there's my rocket. Let me zoom out so you can kind of see where we're launching from. This is South Carolina, so it's got a lot more trees than Colorado. A lot more rain there. So my launch site is like somewhere right here. I'm looking straight down on it. You know, if I zoom out, you can see that, yeah, this is South Carolina. And if I zoom back in, okay, so my launch pad is right there. And now I'm tilting it, so we're looking at it from, you know, not quite a bird's eye view, kind of like off to the side. And if we launch it, the rocket's taking off. Every second it lays down a dot. The rocket goes over the top, and now it's drifting, and it's drifting down. So the parachute came out about right there, and now it's drifting down. And it's going to land way over there. Okay, so that was with a D12-7 launching straight up with a 5-mile-an-hour wind. Now, let's change this, and let's say it's a same thing, D12-7, but instead of being launched straight up, let's give it an angle of 13 degrees to the southwest. This is like a compass. So north is here, east is off to the right, south is down here to the bottom, and west is this way. So you can see I'm kind of aimed between south and west at a minus 150 degrees on a compass. And let's launch this flight profile. And again, we're at the exact same launch site. So let me zoom out. And we launch it, and the rocket takes off. So this time we aimed it to the south a little bit, and it's arced over, and the parachute came out. And when we look at it, it came down right there. And if we zoom out, okay, so now on this one, you can see before we were along a trajectory like about this, you know, because it went straight up. This time we angled it, and when it took off, it angled to the south. So north is the blue or the black arrow, and south is the white arrow. So south is kind of up towards this corner. if you're looking at this map, so it angled to the south, the launch pad was right there, it came up this green line to the south, it arced over, then the parachute came out, and we have the wind coming out of the west. So if I change it to the north, so now we're looking at the north, and you can see that right here is where the parachute came out, and it just drifted to the east because the wind was pushing it. All right, so that is those two simulations, and what I wanted to show before is a comparison. And this time I think it's going to work. So now we're going to see those two flights side by side, and so we have two rockets sitting here on the pad. One of them is aimed to the south, and one of them is going straight up. And they're meeting right here in the middle, so it kind of looks like, you know, like a Siamese twin rocket, but these are actually two individual rockets launched from the same point, but they interfere from each other. Let me zoom out a little bit. In fact, let me go to a trajectory view and let me zoom in a little bit. Let me turn this off. I'm going to try, I better see. Okay, so north is straight up. One rocket's going to come to the south, and one is going to go straight up. Let me look at it from like this angle, I think. All right, so now we're going to launch. We should see two trajectories taking off. And sure enough, we are. So here's the one that went south, and then here's the one that went straight up. You can see this is the ground path. And so now the parachutes on both rockets are out, and they're drifting down, and they're kind of both falling at the same rate. So you see one trajectory over here, one here, and this is really cool. So you can get, you know, a comparison of the two flights with different simulations. So the difference between these two flights was one launched straight up, one was angled at 20, or was it 13 degrees, kind of towards the southwest. And so that was what the trajectories look like. This is not a feature in RockSim Pro right now. It's coming. As soon as the programmers get done with it. It looks to be working with single stage rockets, but not with multiple stage rockets. And until we get multiple stage rockets, you know, we can't release it. The other thing that it's going to do is there's this button right here, and the button is going to change. We don't know what the icon looks like yet, but for right now, it's just a play button. And what this allows you to do is to, you know, you buy these nice altimeters that record data, like a featherweight Blue Jay, featherweight Blue Raven, or the featherweight GPS. All those devices, they store flight data, and you can use that flight data. Like, what do you use it for? Well, this is going to allow you to load that data back into RockSim for the rocket. So you'll click on it, and it's called Replay Your Flight, and this is to use this to show the flight in the 3D launch visualizer based on recorded altimeter or GPS data. And right now it only works with those three different featherweight devices. So you're gonna select the altimeter data. So here is some altimeter data, and it's in CSV format. So comma separated values. And I'm going to choose this one right here. And so this is how featherweight stores the flight. So you give the rocket a name and the date. You launch this rocket December 21, 2024 at 10:27 in the morning, I think that was. So we're going to open that file, and it says this was GPS data, and then we're going to go replay the flight. So now, since this is GPS data, it knows where the rocket was launched from. Oh boy, we're after 3 o'clock. So this rocket was actually launched from Pueblo, and this is actual GPS data, not what RockSim predicted. So this is actual flight data. So if I click launch, it's still sitting on the pad, and then it all of a sudden takes off. And that's because the altimeter stores data right before the altimeter detects liftoff. So it stores a little bit of data before and then stores a little bit after it's on the ground. So right now what we're looking at is the rocket coming back down to the ground. And it's really hard to see on this screen. Let me see if I can make it a little bit better. Well, let me bring it all the way back down to the ground first. And let's zoom out, turn this little window off. Okay, so this is the trajectory of the rocket. Let me turn off the weathercocking cone. And let's change the trajectory path from green to yellow. Maybe yellow will show up a little nicer. Click OK. Yeah, it did. Okay, so here's the trajectory. Here's where it lifted off. The rocket went straight up, or not totally straight, but mostly straight. And then right here it hit Apogee, and then it started coming down. And remember, every one of these red dots is 1 second in the flight. And if you look at the ground path, it's not a straight path. It's very curved. And what's going on here is, on the way up, it was mostly straight in one direction. But then the wind started making it drift, and it actually curved. What actually happened is the wind at different altitudes in the flight was at different directions and different speeds. So you got wind going like this or going like this. And it's causing it to curve around. And at the same time, the parachute is, how parachutes, they never come down nice and straight. They always kind of spin around like this. And so what's going on is the rocket is spinning underneath the parachute. The parachute is just kind of like, and you get these circular gyrations as the rocket's coming down. And if you look at that, really close, you'll see that the path, it's spinning as it's coming down, because that's what the altimeter is recording. So this is an actual launch of a rocket, but not this Dynastar rocket. It was a different rocket. I think it was a Black Brant. But you need a rocket to compare it against. The other thing is, and this is, you got this data, you can say, well, how accurate is RockSim? Let's compare this data to an actual flight. So then you open it up here, and it's looking at all these flights right here, and I could say, let's compare it to this flight. And then you hit replay flight, and it's going to show you both of those flights, again, overlapped. Although in this particular case, remember, the actual launch of the real rocket was in Pueblo, and the simulation we did was in South Carolina. So there's actually 2 flights here, but one is in South Carolina. So I'd have to zoom really far out to see the one in South Carolina, which is like down over here somewhere. See here's the red dot right there. That's where the other flight is. So if I zoom in on that part of the globe, and if I get that red dot, okay, so there's the trajectory of the one flight. But this is the RockSim trajectory that it predicted. Oh, then it switched me back to Colorado. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It does have some limitations. You got to know that when you're comparing 2 different flights, they better be launched at the same spot, or you're going to be switching between views. Fat Bank says, thanks, Tim. Carlos says, the 3D part videos would be great. It's not like he'll be on a date. Okay. Reggie Morto says, that's really cool. Carlos says, if you print an entire rocket, please name it the Anvil. That's funny. Okay. So we're well past 3 o'clock, but I had to show you those features that we're working on for RockSim Pro. That's the future, I think, is RockSim Pro, because it's in 3D. You know, being able to see two flights going off at the same time, and you know, you say, I angled this one, you know, X number of degrees, and this one went straight up, and what's the difference? You know, and that's what the purpose of RockSim is to compare. What are we comparing? Comparing two simulations. Now we can compare a simulation versus actual flight data. And that's going to be really interesting, because now you're going to be saying, how come they didn't match up? And so that's going to cause you to compare, right? Really cool stuff coming down the pike. You know, you can get RockSim Pro right now, and as soon as those new features come out, you'll get an update notice, and then you just update them, and you'll be able to run them. So thank you for coming. We should be back again next week. Today is the 24th. I'm not sure. 24 and 7. So yeah, I think we're going to be into February. But I'm pretty sure I'll be here the first week of February. It's the second week. I'm not sure. February is a little bit up in the air for me for RockSim Live, because there's some events coming up. There's a launch that I'm going to go to in Arizona. It's called the North Coast Cup. It's a competition. The reason I'm going is it's a preparation flight for the World Championships, which will be later this summer. And so the U.S. team is going to gather and fly as a group and practice together, so we know how to interact with each other. Because it's a team event, you fly individually, but you get a lot of help from the team. And you get to exchange ideas with different modelers. And so you learn a lot from these events. You don't have to be a member of the U.S. team to go, and you can still get the same benefit. So if you're interested in competition rocketry and you want to learn a lot, and you want to learn a lot really fast, go to that event, and it's called I think it's the North Coast Cup or the Arizona Cup or something like that. It's in Tucson, Arizona, the last weekend in February, and it starts Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's a 3-day event. It won't be huge. There might be 40, 50 people there. And they're all going to be small rockets, but it's going to be fun, and you'll learn a lot, and I'll be there. Okay. Fat Bank says he wants Michelle on deck. I'll ask her. See if she wants to do it. Okay. Terry Wheelock says he posted a new RockSim design file on his channel, so be sure to check out that. I'm sure it's going to be really cool. So I'm going to give you a countdown, and we'll get out of here. And you know, in the next week, I hope it's a great week for you. So, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go out and launch something.